Hello, good morning and welcome to a brand new edition of the newspaper show. I'm Shel D'Souza and this is the show where we get you all the top headlines that's there on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India for you. But before I get on to the top headlines, let me tell all of our viewers that the newspapers are indeed safe. But if you've not got your copy of the Economic Times or the Times of India, please let your delivery agent or the vendor know, or you can log on to www.wantmypaper.com and let them know that you want your copy of the pink paper or the Times of India or the ones that you prefer. But let me get on board with the top 10 headlines that's there on the Economic Times this morning. And that's definitely about the 2 weeks of extension of the lockdown. Most activities are allowed outside the containment zone. That is the top headline on the Economic Times as well as the Times of India this morning. Moving on, e-commerce companies may resume full operations from today onwards. Cab hailing services are no longer prohibited. The Home Ministry has removed restrictions on that particular front. Moving on, final tranche of the stimulus was announced yesterday. There is changes in the IBC. Remember, 5 tranches is what the finance minister split the stimulus into, and in the final tranche she's announced the changes in the IBC. Moving on, another set of changes that came in yesterday's tranche was that the state's borrowing limit has now been hiked. The states may get additional 4.28 lakh crore rupees. That's all a part of the stimulus. Moving on, experts are of the view the stimulus may dent the deficit to deficit at 1.1 to 2% of the GDP. That is what the experts have to say on the particular stimulus. Moving on to Reliance Jio, General Atlantic is set to buy 1.34% stake in Jio platforms. Malls will get ready to live with the virus. This is the next headline that's there on the Economic Times. And ICMR may revise hydroxychloroquine guidelines. And lastly, government targets 10 million tests by July end. So those were the top 10 headlines that you had on the Economic Times this morning, starting definitely with the lockdown extension. But those are the top 10 headlines. Let me move on now quickly. The top 10 corporate headlines that's there on the Economic Times, and that is Maruti Suzuki looks to resume operations from today onwards. So that is one of the top headlines that's coming in on the corporate news front. But moving on, you have Bharti Infratel Indus Towers merger is likely soon. You have Oppo that's halted Noida unit operations as staff test positive. Fuel sales will revive in the first half of May. That's another corporate set of headlines coming on the Economic Times. And telecom companies stare at a fine of 50 crore rupees per violation. So those are the roundup of the corporate headlines that's there on the Economic Times this morning for you. But let me quickly move on to the Economic Times markets page for you and get you all the top market headlines that you have this morning. And first up, you have this story here that MFs have raised the cash levels to an 8-month high on lockdown uncertainties. That is the top headline on the Economic Times markets page for you. But what are the other headlines coming in from the markets page? Strong overseas demand for NBFC's bonds. So that is the other top headlines. Moving on, you have motors, cooking fuel demand to rise as curbs will be eased going ahead. You have Vedanta delisting move due to the debt concerns. And 8 of the top 10 companies lost 1.3 lakh crore rupees last week. So those are the top 5 headlines coming in on the economics markets page for you this morning. All right, so those are the top headlines coming on this morning in the Economic Times. But let me quickly shift to the top story that's there on the Economic Times, and that is about the stimulus. Here you go. So you have multiple headlines on the Economic Times on the stimulus and the tranche, the fifth tranche that the finance minister announced yesterday. What the entire stimulus is all about, what does it have, what it consists of. 20.97 lakh crore is the entire stimulus package that has been announced by the government. That's the size of the stimulus package according to the government. This includes 8 lakh crore rupees worth of measures already announced by the RBI. Also, the fifth tranche of stimulus, let me just read right off from the paper for you. They're saying that the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government will amend the IBC to exclude debt taken during the COVID-19 outbreak and suspend any fresh resolution filings for up to 1 year. So this is one of the top headlines coming in, top takeaway rather coming in from the fifth tranche of the fifth tranche of the stimulus that was announced by the Finance Minister. Apart from that, you have the government will provide additional 40,000 crore rupees allocation to the Manrega for FY21. They are going to allow the states to borrow up to 5% of gross state domestic products from 3% now, and privatize public sector enterprises in non-strategic sectors under a new policy for such units. Also, you had the health reforms that the Finance Minister announced in the tranche 5 to boost research via National Institutional Platform for One Health by ICMR, also integrated public health labs in all districts. So these are the top takeaways coming in from the tranche 5 of the stimulus that was announced by the Finance Minister. So all in all, 20.97 lakh crore is the stimulus size of the package. This includes also the 8 lakh crore rupees worth of measures that was already announced by the RBI. Though the experts are saying that most of it is in the liquidity and the guarantees, and unlike many other major economies, there's not much direct cash support or demand push. That's the word coming in from the experts on the stimulus package. So that's the roundup, the tranche number 5 of the stimulus for you. All right, let's shift focus now to Reliance Industries and Reliance Jio. General Atlantic is all set to buy 1.34% stake in Jio platforms for 6,598 crore rupees. Remember, this is a fourth such big deal that has been announced in over the last 4 weeks. And what does this mean for Reliance Jio? And what does this mean for Reliance Jio platforms? We are joined by Ajay Sharma to take us through the contours of the deal and the deals in the past 4 weeks as well. Ajay, good morning. Another deal coming in for Reliance Jio, really quick in the last 4 weeks. This is the fourth one, I believe.
Well, that's correct. It looks like somebody is working really hard. Work from home model is working for Reliance, because 1 week after the other, there are billion-dollar deals getting announced. This is the fourth one, taking the tally to almost 67,000 crore being raised in a matter of 4 weeks. And if you look at the pedigree of the kind of investors which are coming in, General Atlantic, the private equity company which has invested this time, it is their largest investment in Asia, and 1.34% stake for 6,600 crore. Also, they have been doing technology, high technology kind of transactions globally. So this is a kind of an endorsement that the Jio platforms, the asset Jio platform actually become. The other thing important is the earlier deals of Silver Lake and Vista were also by marquee private equity companies. So the kind of investors which are coming in now are technology-centric investors with long-term view who can see the way Jio have actually transformed into a technology company. The other part is that 1.5 lakh crore overall debt which they have, and which they were targeting to reduce by March 21. By the looks of it, the running rate is very strong. You don't be surprised that they may very well reduce it substantially or almost in this calendar year itself. That's what the analysts are saying. And of course, the rights issue money which will all be coming in. So it's a positive. Interesting to see how stocks react in trade today, because last week the stock had fallen. So let's see how it reacts in trade today.
Definitely, Ajay, will all eyes set on Reliance Industry to see how it actually performs in trade today after General Atlantic is all set to buy 1.34% stake in Jio platforms. But let's shift focus now to another story that's there on your Economic Times in the front page. Here you go. Remittances return, but from rural to urban. Definitely a shift in that particular front. Rural health for the stranded in the cities. And that is what the headline is saying. Remittances are returning, but from the rural to the urban area. Here you go. Let me read more news off the paper, what it actually means. The companies report 35 to 50% recovery in business in the first 2 weeks of May against 90% fall in March as well as in April. An early pickup in the economic activity and the rise in reverse remittance from rural to urban has led to revival in domestic remittances in May after nearly a total collapse in March as well as in April. The reverse flows, Spice Digital has recorded 50% rise. Fino Payments Banks has seen a 45% pickup in the remittances. You have Ecofin Services and PayPoints that have seen a 35% growth. Green and orange zones are contributing to the pickup in the reverse remittances. Reverse remittance of family members of migrants add to the growth. So you're seeing a southern state that is beginning to see normalization in the remittances as well. So definitely a headline to at least focus on and a story to basically read up more on is the fact the remittances have returned, but this time around it is from the rural to urban, basically rural health for the stranded in the cities. So this is another top story that's coming in on the Economic Times for you. But let me stay on with the front page of the Economic Times and let's address the top story that's there on the Economic Times, the Times of India, and any paper that you see, and that is a 2-week lockdown extension. Definitely, most of us are aware that this was much needed. The way how there is a spike in the cases, definitely a lockdown extension was anticipated by most, but let's see whether the relaxations are as much as most of us were expected. To talk more on that, I'm joined by my colleague Utkarsh Chaturvedi. Utkarsh, good morning. Definitely a 2-week extension of the lockdown was mostly priced in by most of us. We had expected that this lockdown extension will happen. But tell me, are the restrictions, have the restrictions actually eased more for us?
Exactly. So, Cheryl, it's a way of looking at things. You can look at it by as extension of a lockdown, or you can see a gradual opening. I think the biggest thing out here is what the states have been asking, and that is the independence to decide what is a green, red, and a containment zone. And that's something which is very big, which the states have been asking, because according to the states, whatever zones center was deciding when it comes to green and red was not exactly as per the situation, and they had the ear to the ground and they were managing the resources. That is a big thing. What has not started is the airlines, is the travel, is cinemas, but again, sports complexes without spectators can start, something very new. But interstate transport still not started. The 7 to 7 curfew still remains. What is the most important thing here is that the big cities will still remain, more or less where they are. Mumbai, especially look at Maharashtra and all the other states, they had announced the extension of lockdown much before the announcement came from the center. But it's again, at least in this lockdown 4.2, the biggest difference is that it takes us a lot of autonomy to decide which areas to open and how to open, and that is something which will be very important. So you have to what you have to look at is now how the states are looking at it, and now it's a very state-specific matter when it comes to easing the restrictions in their areas.
All right, Utkarsh, thank you for joining us this morning and taking us through the top takeaways from the 2-week extension of the lockdown. What's still barred is your air travel, your metro services, educational, religious places, restaurants, hotels, cinema halls, as well as malls. They continue to be prohibited. And it's a green light, all activities except for those prohibited and allowed irrespective of the zone. So those are the top takeaways coming in from the lockdown 4.0. Definitely 2-week lockdown, but most activities are allowed outside the containment zone. But let me shift focus now to the e-commerce companies, and this is another takeaway that's coming on the Economic Times right in the front page, right in the entire block of the 2 more week of lockdown. Here you have that e-commerce companies may resume full operations from today. You have cab hailing services that are no longer prohibited. So definitely a big push-up coming in for your Flipkart, your Amazons, or even your Uber or your Ola services. They're saying that the Maharashtra Home Ministry, so I beg your pardon, it's your Home Ministry, MHA, that's removed the restrictions for the particular e-commerce companies. Let me read what's there in the newspaper mode so that you can get more glimpse of the stories. E-commerce firms such as Flipkart, Amazon, Snapdeals, as well as specialized e-tailers like Lenskart, Nykaa, and First Cry are expected to resume full-fledged operations from Monday after the center has removed restrictions on online retail as part of the Lockdown 4.0 plan. Earlier, these platforms could only sell non-essential goods in government-designated green and orange zones. In red zones, however, they were permitted to sell only essential items such as food and groceries. Also, the Home Ministry said that the state will decide on allowing businesses to function based on their local needs as well as situations. So definitely we need to wait and watch and see more clarification on that particular front. But as of now, as Economic Times is reporting, that e-commerce companies may resume full operations from today onwards. All right, let's shift focus from the lockdown extension and the contours of it and details of it, and let me move on to a global news, a global headline that is set to rattle the global markets as well if it is not controlled and further escalates. And that story is on your page 11 of the Economic Times, and here you go. It is China that is warning United States of all necessary measures after curbs on Hawaii. Remember, on Thursday, on Friday, you've been having Donald Trump speak out against Chinese companies. They're saying they're looking very closely at Chinese companies listed on the NYSE. Also, you had restrictions coming in on Hawaii as well. The temporary license has been extended. This is a move to actually block the chip maker further on as well by US Commerce Ministry, as the reports had mentioned on Friday. So there you go. China is retaliating to that particular news. China is warning US of all necessary measures after curbs on Hawaii. The United States on Friday announced new rules that would cut Hawaii off from the global chip suppliers. So there you go. China's Commerce Ministry is saying that it will take all necessary measures in response to new US restrictions on Hawaii's ability to use American technology, calling the measures of an abuse of state power and a violation of market principles. The statement also goes ahead and reads that the United States uses state power under the so-called excuse of national security and abuses export control measures to continuously oppress and contain specific enterprises of other nations. That is the statement that has come in the China's Commerce Ministry website. So there you go. This kind of escalating where China is now warning United States. So you need to wait and watch what both the sides of the nations will do pertaining to this. You know that the United States has been pretty vocal about China's role in a coronavirus as well. Now shifting focus from page 11 of Economic Times to page 8 of Economic Times, and there you go, there is a top story out here on page 8, that is government plans mega SOPs to attract local and global companies in coal mining. So that is a big story that's coming in the Economic Times. Let me just read a little more on that particular story. To attract revenue investments, revenue share model to include rebates for quick production start and for exceeding output targets. The Coal Ministry will begin the process after a cabinet nod. But what are the other details of this particular story? I have my colleague Vivek who's standing by. Good morning, Vivek. Take us through the story.
Well, after the finance minister announced that they would now be allowing coal mining in the private sector, this is something that's quite a significant reform. Remember, so far Coal India has a monopoly as far as coal mining inside the country is concerned. Allowing private players to come in would be a game changer. Most of the experts that we've spoken to at this point of time are actually of the view that while this is a very long-term positive, they believe that near term it's still going to have not so much of a significant impact. In fact, today morning the Economic Times has actually said in order to make coal mining by private players as well as foreign players a lot more attractive, they're also offering and planning mega shops to attract both local as well as global companies. Now what they are saying is that the Union Cabinet is all set to announce a revenue sharing model, and this will actually be for both the auction as well as coal as well as lignite mines. The other thing that they are mulling is the PPP, a private-public partnership, and again this is something that they believe will attract more private as well as foreign players. So overall what they're saying is that the other thing that they will do, they will be increasing the tenure of linkage as far as Coal India's mines are concerned, and again this could be increased to as high as 30 years. So overall a lot of mega reforms being planned as far as the mining, especially in the coal space, is concerned. And remember, bringing in a private player is actually expected to improve the availability of coal, especially to power plants across the country.
All right, time now for the top coronavirus headlines from the Times of India. And first story is definitely that the new cases have crossed 5,000 for the first time in the state of Maharashtra. The death is up by about 154. So that's a cause of worry coming in for the state of Maharashtra. Moving on, what are the other headlines coming in from Times of India on coronavirus? India has joined 62 nations seeking probe into COVID-19. You have Tamil Nadu along with Maharashtra and also the national level that's extended the lockdown till the month or till the end of this month. You have e-tailers that are gearing up to deliver in all the 3 zones now, and you have Trump that is slamming the shutdown, claiming that all is well. They say he's definitely, that he's against the particular shutdown, and he's saying that all is well on that particular front. And those are the top headlines coming in from the Times of India for you this morning. And with that, we are out of time on this edition of the newspaper show. See you tomorrow. But before we leave you, here is a special news segment for the hearing impaired.